you need to do more. You need to be better. You need to be better than the best. If you're not cooking XYZ, then you're not a good mother. Right? So intellectually, I might know, this is not good for me to say this. Why am I so mean to myself? But then it still pops up. Right? I can't be cooking every day and then having 2 businesses on the side and, trying to be there for everyone and attuned and not yell at my daughter. And, right? So I'm gonna mess up. Often it's easier to extend that compassion to others than to ourselves. So a lot of I guess the deep kind of inner work for me is holding compassion
for yourself.
Yeah.
Hello there, it's Asami here with you again. There's obviously no single way of being a good parent, but many Asian Australian parents experience a need to make conscious changes to their own parenting styles because the world in which they grew up is totally different from their parents. So what do you do when your parents had a really different experience of parenting compared with you? Do you learn from them or do you learn from the current cultural context that you're in? And what does it even mean to reparent yourself? And this is what today's guest, Vi Tran, a second-generation Vietnamese Australian clinical psychologist and founder of the Middle Bridge Project, talks us through today in depth. I'm excited for you to hear this, whether or not you are a parent, whether or not you're an Asian parent. I think you'll gain a lot from it. I definitely did. Welcome to the Asian Mental Health Podcast, brought to you by Shapes and Sounds. Hi Vi, thank you so much for joining us here today. It's lovely to have you in the studio and to meet you in person after all this time, hey?
I know, I'm so excited and really excited to be here to have a conversation with you. I think Shapes and Sounds have been absolutely amazing in terms of community building and building a voice for Asian Australians. So
that's so nice.
Glad to be here.
Thank you. I'm really excited for our conversation today as we've been chatting in the studio. Essentially every kind of question that we have, either whether it's from the community or whether it's from mental health services, like wherever it's coming from, I feel like everything has to do with Asian parents as like a hashtag, almost like Asian parents or like in quotation mark Asian parents. So this episode, I'm going to ask you so many questions about parenthood and your thoughts about parenting and all of that kind of stuff, and mixed in with your experiences as well. But my first question to you is, like, I can just imagine that becoming a parent is a huge undertaking. It's not for everyone, and it's like completely life-changing, I assume, as a non-parent or as like a dog parent.
It's the same. No.
Is it the same? Yeah. I know like human parents don't really like that comparison, but anyway. How on earth did you prepare yourself for parenthood?
It's such a good question, because how can anyone fully be prepared, right? We can anticipate, we can study, and I think as a psychologist who has worked with parents, have worked with adolescents and children, have done the parent training, it's a lot of my friends do tell me, V, it must be so easy. And I'm like, no, it is not easy, right? Because you can theoretically know something, you can theoretically know and you can teach people it, but until you experience it yourself, I think it's in completely different. So I guess for me, as during my pregnancy, listening to podcasts, I bought a book called Beyond the Bump, which was written by a psychologist as well, to mentally prepare myself. And then I had all these issues with pregnancy. It was during COVID and all that. And I never read that book.
So it's still just there.
So it's still there. And I read it, I think, in my first month of being a parent, and I read maybe one chapter.
Oh, wow.
So and then I read it, as any therapist usually does with books they don't read. And so how I prepared for it, I think talking with a lot of people, talking with a lot of friends, but also reading stories and listening to stories. But no matter how much I guess I heard or listened to stories, parenting for me was very unexpected unexpected, and it felt more like taking on a whole different identity that I didn't anticipate would feel or embody.
Really? Like,
yeah.
is that like once the baby arrives?
I think
Or
it was,
during your pregnancy?
I think for me, so I had a planned cesarean, and as soon as they injected, I can't remember what it's called, in my back, the anesthetic, I like bawled my eyes out and was like, oh, I think it's happening. I think we're taking this baby out now. I think this is time. And all the nurses were like, what's wrong? Are you hurt? Are you okay? I'm like, no, I think it's emotionally, it feels different, right? And I talk about embodying, it feels different in my body to hold a baby who is ours, my partner and I, and to see the baby grow through so many developmental kind of milestones.
Wow. So it really is a point when there's like a physical human.
There's a physical human, yeah. And I think you said it's like having a dog. We had a dog as well. Slightly different in that this human is now the boss of the house, and we work around the baby, we work around the toddler, and she still is the boss as a preschooler in the house. But it pulls you in so many ways in thinking about your own experiences. Being parented too, and that was something that probably was a bit, yes, I anticipated that, I've done my own reflections, but that pulled me deeper into that kind of loop.
I was going to ask you that, like, with your newborn or even after that, like, did you start to reflect a lot on how you were parented and those kind of earlier memories and I don't know, things like that.
Yeah, and 100%. I think even the dialogue that I'd have with mum around, do you remember what I was like as a baby? She's like, nah. Like, what do you mean? I have 7 siblings, so she's like, no, I think it's written somewhere in the maternal child health book, but I was working and pushing the pram at the same time or something like that. So even the ways my parents would narrate or talk about us, me and my siblings, kind of growing up, what we were like as easy children or difficult or unsettled. It did get me thinking about them a little bit more and maybe with the resources I had and they didn't as well.
What about if you compare like your journey of early motherhood and parenthood versus your mum's like 7 kids in total? What are some of those differences? Can you tell us?
I think there's a lot. I have 1 and she has 7. Obviously, that's a huge one. But for my parents, I think there's a lot to do with the way they parented us has got to do with the history that they experienced. So when they first came to Australia, or their boat kind of story was having 2 infants. So I think one was 1 and one was 3, my sisters, on a boat as refugees to Indonesia, and then they were sponsored to Australia. And so thinking about their experiences of lack of resources, their experiences coming here as refugees from the Vietnam War / immigrants, not speaking English, going through their own kind of trauma, loss of home, community trauma, collective trauma, and then also isolation from family and grieving that too, whilst parenting.
Yeah.
Right. So for me,
and working, like trying to stay alive.
So it was very, I'd say, survival based or fear based parenting, where they were actually rightfully and understandably worried or fearful for their life at one point or several points, and then the livelihood of their children growing up in a country they've never been to.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So versus mine. Probably feels a little bit easier if we were to kind of do a bit of a comparison, and quite privileged. We also have these privileges that our parents didn't, to have this language to express, to reflect, to talk about. And I don't know if my parents know the term intergenerational trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when I say yes, privilege, but also language to define that and to talk about it, and access to education to know and have insight and awareness and reflection. I think that's probably where I'm going.
Yeah, that's beautiful. You're so right. It's a privilege that we have this knowledge and these words that we can use to describe the things we've seen or experienced. And I want to know, when you were growing up, did you did you know about some of the experiences that your parents had gone through? Or the context for this question is when I think back to my schooling, like when I think of history class, like we didn't learn anything about Asia except for maybe Japan and World War II.
Yeah.
But apart from that, like I literally had no learning about Asia at all, right? But I wonder, like, did you know about the Vietnam War and did you know about all these things either from your school or from your family?
I think when I look back, we definitely knew we didn't belong here, right? We definitely knew we looked different. We knew there was a Vietnam War. It was spoken about. We'd go back to Vietnam to visit. We knew about sort of the impact as well. So mum and dad did share with us at times, didn't share as much and then other times would drop like something really, really big on us. So for example, they might share that, did you know your uncle was shot and, that's why he didn't have to go to fight in the war and he got to come back home. And I was like, what do you mean shot? I'm only 10, Mum. Like,
You're like, what?
So,
Hang on.
What are you talking about? So there's this, and I understand that as their way of also making sense and sharing the stories with us, that it might come in, and the impact of trauma, right, where it impacts on the way that we recall memories, and it impacts on retelling, and so it might come in little fragments. So now I remember it as, or I know it and understand it as their way of maybe making sense of the experiences that they experience from the war and the impact of the war and migration.
Yeah, wow.
But certainly I still don't know the full story.
Yeah.
And I am quite intentional and conscious about not asking unnecessary questions as well, because they don't owe me a story, and they share what they feel comfortable with. And so the questions might be more around maybe understanding impacts as opposed to tell me about like what happened on the boat in 1980 something, right, which might pull people back to more like trauma-based kind of memories.
Yeah, wow.
As well.
Did you have other families around you that were in similar situations or positions? Like, did you have a good community?
Yeah, I think the thing that I am really grateful for is my parents had quite a big community around them of family, extended family, but also they were part of like the Catholic kind of community as well. One story comes to mind when, one of our grandparents passed away in Vietnam. We've got 7, kids at home. Mum had to go, took 1 or 2 of us to divide and conquer to Vietnam, and Dad stayed home with us. So with our family, Mum did most of the cooking, right? So then Dad had to step up. And it was a little bit frantic, but for some reason our aunties knew what they needed to do and their roles. So we would get people knocking on our door, bringing in pots of a variety of foods that we would consume for days. I remember eating, it's called like bánh canh tôm, which is like I think it's like a noodle dish with prawns in it, and we had this like massive pot we ate for like a whole week, and everyone was so sick of it. But looking
so many children as well.
Many children, it's so convenient. Everyone just eats this for like breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and it was delicious until after day 3 maybe. But thinking about that, like how incredibly powerful that is to have community in unspoken ways when we need them, and that they show up without asking with pots of food for this family. And obviously it was my aunties and lots of aunties and family friends, but they knew to come and they knew to drop off food, fruits, veggies, whatever it was to make the family easier. That's the way people like us maybe show up for community.
I want us to focus back on parenting styles, right? Because that's what we had planned to talk about, but we just kind of went wild. But anyway, in terms of parenting styles, like just to give everyone listening a little bit of context, I'll give like a bit of background, but many of you will be familiar with parenting, like this term of parenting styles and these categories of ways of parenting. And very, very broadly speaking, there's kind of 4 types of parenting styles, like authoritative, authoritarian, which is so similar. I don't know who decided on this. They're so similar, but they're actually very different. Authoritative is supposed to be the one where you have good boundaries, but you also communicate well. You're like strong but firm, but also loving and warm. And then the one that's similar, authoritarian, has a very different definition, which is like really focusing on discipline and like punishment. That's kind of more authoritarian. And then there's permissive, which is the parent that kind of lets the child do whatever they want. And then uninvolved, which is like not so interested in the child. So these parenting styles originated in the 1960s by someone called Diana Baumrind. And she did all of her research about parenting styles, which I think is really interesting, on white middle-class heteronormative families. And then there was like a little bit of adaptation later on in the 1980s from Stanford Uni. They added another parenting style to make the 4 parenting styles. But essentially what's interesting to consider is that these parenting styles are still like really talked about, and they're like real fundamental frameworks in how the mental health world conceptualizes and talks about parenting. So a lot of the time, this authoritarian parenting, like the very strict parent one, I think it kind of gets intertwined with these real Asian parent stereotypes, like the tiger mum and, you know, like the Asian parents who only want their kids to get A+ and all this kind of stuff, right? So my question to you, Vi, because you are an Asian person, you're also a psychologist who, you know, and you are a parent, what's your parenting style? Such a long-winded question.
Yeah, no. I think that the foundation that you provided is really interesting. And I think for me, my parenting style, you know, I'd like to think that my parenting style is one that is probably a combination of multiple kind of worlds. There's no such thing as like perfect or being like the best or the good parent, right?
Or the right
parent. But it's thinking about, obviously, do no harm, but you know, how am I? What priorities or values do I want to prioritize within my relationship with my daughter? And that might change if I have another one, right? But with my daughter, what kind of parent do I want to show up to be? What values do I want to instill? And I say mindful in that conscious parent, and that there will be ruptures and we repair. So relationship and connections are probably really fundamental in my kind of lens and intersections, and also in a lot of the research that I've looked into in helping children thrive and find a sense of autonomy in themselves, right? And so my parenting style, I hope, is taking a little bit of, you know, some of the unspoken love and messages I received from my parents, but also shifting to maybe a little bit more emotion kind of focused around attunement. Not to say my parents weren't attuned; they were probably attuned in a different kind of way. But thinking about you know, those four ones, like, I'm not.
It doesn't quite relate,
it doesn't
right?
Quite fully,
or fit,
it doesn't quite fully kind of fit sort of what I hope to envision or embody as a parent. But it might be sort of the one around a more authoritative kind of style if we were to go in one style.
Or the good one.
Yeah, the good one.
The
or
best
the
one.
permissive. Or and I say I hope, right? I hope to be someone who is perceived in that kind of way, but also I think the perception of my daughter is probably most important to me in how she perceives how I show up in terms of how connected we are. Yeah.
What do you mean by attuned?
Attuned, good question. So to be attuned is thinking about like what cues is my child sending me, right? So for example, I don't know, we're running late to get ready for school, and she's taking her sweet ass time, putting her shoes on, and I'm sitting here going, we're going to be 10 minutes late. And she's like, Mom, one more kiss, one more hug. And I'm like, oh my God, and like it's boiling, right? So in that moment, I could flip and be like, this is the last time, we're leaving, that's enough. Get out of here.
Yeah.
Right? Stop wasting Mum's time. I need to go work too. Right? Or I could pause, maybe take a breath, think about, does she want right now? Why does she want another kiss when we're late? I think she might miss me, right? So reading underneath maybe what the behaviors that they're showing you and being curious what else might be. And we're not mind readers. We can only be ever so curious about what that might be. Yeah.
But rather than being like, okay, no, we got to leave the house at 8. It's like, oh no, what is this child asking?
What is this child asking me? What is her messaging right now? I don't think she's doing this on purpose. I don't think she probably even knows the concept of time, to be honest. But it's obviously frustrating me, and there's something else that she wants right now.
Wow. Connection seeking.
Connection seeking, perhaps. Yeah.
I can imagine that, just say you did not like lash out at your daughter, but you're like, come on, we're running late, get in the car. And then do you as a parent turn around like at 11 a.m. later on in the day and being like, oh, I feel so bad. Like I feel so sad. Do you do that?
All the time.
And then, like, you beat yourself up
all
about
the time,
that?
all the time. And I think that's a language that happens even to this day for myself. And especially maybe if I'm talking about more for maybe other Asian Australian parents who will naturally have very like guilt-inducing inner parent voices or voices that are a bit more critical, right?
Yep.
And then it becomes louder when you become a parent. So you're more harsh to yourself when things mess up, when things don't go your way. Who else do you blame? Yourself, right? And you become harsh towards yourself. So in moments like this, I mean, you could eventually beat yourself up emotionally, but where does that go? You know, you go down this loop.
I think that leads on to the question of like, like that loop that is so easy to recreate if you're not really conscious about what you're doing. Like the way you were parented is so easy to repeat as well, just because it's like so natural. And if you're tired and if you're like running late and all of these kinds of things, like, do you have a story or an experience of kind of you really noticing like, oh, I did a really good job kind of breaking that cycle?
Yeah. I think they all, like, when you say stories, I'm like, my mind just
so
like
many.
emerges like too many stories, right? Because when I think about like breaking a cycle or breaking a pattern, it often means that there's multiple occurrences, right, of something similar that pops up. So there's all this like cultural conditioning and messages we receive from our parents, our experiences of culture, our experiences of community that says we put other people first, or even from, I guess, a lot of collectivistic kind of cultures, right? The group before me. So I think for me, the part around this pattern of the way that I talk to myself, the way that I might burn myself up by ensuring that I've cleaned the whole house before someone comes, or ensure that I'm cooking every meal or cooking as much as I can for my daughter so she gets the most nutrients. And if I'm not meeting that unrelenting expectation or need, which I saw mum doing a lot growing up, providing, home cooked meals every single day, showing up for us practically, then there's this default voice of like, have you done enough?
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. Should you do more? You're not cooking enough. She's not getting any nutrients. But then you're also working and you have no time to cook properly or a fantastic meal every single night. So I think it's one of the things I come back and I still continue to try and shift and learn is that inner kind of self-talk around you need to do more. You need to be better. You need to be better than the best in some ways. Wow. Because if you're not cooking XYZ, then you're not a good mother, right? Yeah. And I might not say that explicitly to myself, but there's some inkling of feeling not good enough. Right? So intellectually, I might know, oh, this is not good for me to say this. Why am I so mean to myself? But then it still pops up. Right.
Yeah, and it's somewhere really deep in there.
It's like deeply seated. So I think a part of me breaking maybe that is thinking about, yes, one is intention, but two, also holding myself with a bit more self-compassion and redefining maybe what a good enough mother is for me, because I can't be cooking every day and then having 2 businesses on the side and, trying to be there for everyone and attuned and not yell at my daughter. And, right? So I'm gonna mess up, and people mess up, and often it's easier to extend that to others than to ourselves. So a lot of I guess the deep kind of inner work for me is holding compassion
for yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
In the very early days of your daughter being in this world, was your mum involved in those very early stages of your parenting?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Could you paint that picture for me?
Yes, very vivid. I'm getting flashbacks. No, she's still involved in my daughter's care at the moment, but in a very different way. So when I gave birth was during sort of still the COVID kind of time, Omicron wave, lockdowns,
Wow,
all of that. So, but it did work to our advantage in that my partner and I, we had a lot of time, with us three and figuring out, and it was actually really lovely sort of being in this newborn phase with just us. And then you introduce the grandparents, and then you hear more, I'd say, opinions, things you didn't ask for. And I'd say that was probably quite activating for me. So things like, so my daughter had pretty severe eczema kind of growing up, opinions from people around, it's probably, your breast milk, you should just put her on formula, or, you're not eating healthy enough, Vi, so your daughter has eczema, or you're not feeding her enough, she's too skinny, or, so comments like this. And I look back and I kind of go, oh yes, of course Asian aunties and parents would say this. It's from a place of care, right? But in the moment, I'm like, alarm bells go off, and it is really activating because you then blame yourself, and I think the self-talk I spoke about earlier strengthens, right? Because you hear these messages which doesn't explicitly say you're not good enough, but then you internalize that and you go, oh, I don't think I'm good enough.
Yeah, wow.
Right?
Is that because you're tired as well, sleep deprived and
probably
just
sleep deprived, hormonal, just going through your own identity transition, right? And it's a big adjustment period. But mum was very supportive in terms of the practical things. So all the soups, the delicious, really healthy kind of broth, and also a big part of, I guess, mum and my sister is the care that they provide, in that, I'm in some way just very privileged to be able to lean on that support to be able to go back to work earlier as well. So the practical kind of care, and then probably maybe the harsh kind of comments was me finding my voice to kind of go, Mum, we shouldn't be talking like this to new parents, not just me, but to others. We're still trying to find our feet. Right. But that took, I think, a lot for me to kind of voice and be like, it's not disrespectful if I speak up and I tell her to stop, rather than me, I don't know, lashing out or being like, stop telling me what to do, or whatever.
How did those conversations go? Were they well received?
I think they were met with silence, but but I would say but I would say that is well received enough, right? So and I say met with silence in that in my family, and I know in a lot of Asian families, is a silence isn't necessarily negative or positive. It could be their indirect way of communicating and processing things, right? And then we'll see next time when I talk about, feeding, and see what happens. Does mum maybe pause a little bit and not say the same things? Is she more intentional? And she is. She has respected that. At times. yeah, most of the time.
So it did work as well. It did, or not work, but have good benefits, have good outcomes for you both, essentially.
And that might look very differently. I think that was just one dialogue. It could be other ways of maybe just avoiding that conversation entirely, or limiting me one-on-one feeding specifically at mum's house to have those conversations. Not so much avoidance, but setting more indirect maybe boundaries, managing that.
I think that's really great advice for so many people, in not just in parenting, but in anything. You don't have to have a verbal confrontation as such, but there are other ways in which you can set your own boundaries.
Right, yeah. You don't have to always use words. You can speak the unspoken words that our parents spoke, and speak kind of their language, right? And they might actually understand that better. as well, rather than, if you look at boundary setting books that are probably more westernized, it's like assertive communication, say no, right? It doesn't have to be like that for people like us. Actually, it could be adapted and different.
Do you feel like you had to test and trial this?
Yeah, and lucky for me, I have older siblings.
Okay.
so they might have done a lot of the testing for me in the trial and error, and then I kind of take what I like and then use.
I see what works.
And cousins, friends, right? So they're not. I guess when I share my stories from the intersection of a parent and a psychologist, they're not new stories, but they're stories that a lot of people may resonate with because they're probably everyday parent stories, but the nuance of having Asian parents.
Yeah. What about your daughter now? So your parents are first gen and then you are second gen, Vietnamese Australian. Now I guess your daughter is third generation. How do you kind of think about her culture and do you actively try to keep her involved in Vietnamese culture or how does that all work?
I think it's a really interesting question because it's like, do I get a say in this when she thinks about her identity as a third generation Vietnamese Australian? I hope that she gets to choose and pick intentionally or not what she likes. But the wonderful thing that we try to do is actually thinking about the festivities in the years, right? So for Vietnamese, it's Tết or Chinese New Year or Lunar New Year, celebrating that with family. It's a big time of the year, food, customs and all that. So bringing her into those kind of moments, but also giving her the chance to have a relationship with my parents or my partner's parents, and what that means sort of for her, right? And I'll probably have to correct myself. My partner is Chinese Timorese, so my daughter is not 100% Vietnamese. Yeah. She is Chinese Timorese / Vietnamese Australian as well. So we do get sort of a mix of both kind of cultures into that too. And so it's not just sort of my side, but also my partner's side around kind of Chinese Timorese New Year and food and family gatherings, big weddings, all of that. Language is something we just teach maybe a little bit. I know a lot of families might have one who speak the language predominantly because there's a few languages in our household. We speak English as well at home, but even just phrases or books or very I think books, children's books that's created by sort of Asian, sort of Americans, Australians, and bringing that into sort of her learning and reading so that she gets to think about what her identity means and what it looks like and how it manifests in her life as well. So opportunities for her to instill that herself too.
Wow, it's going to be interesting, hey? Yeah. Third gen and beyond. On the topic of food and celebrations you were talking about, I've seen some beautiful content that you make on social media and there's often a focus on food, which I love. But today I want to specifically talk about the cutting fruit metaphor that you talk about, right?
Yeah.
And I know you've got your earrings, so you got the fruit earrings. Can you tell me, what do you mean about like what is this metaphor, cutting fruit, especially in the context of Asian mental health?
I love this question because I love the metaphor. So what it means probably for me and a few people many that I've spoken to, is around the metaphor of a lot of us sort of Asian backgrounds growing up. Our parents didn't say, I love you, or our parents didn't express, care through more verbal kind of ways, and they might have expressed it through more unspoken ways. And I'll give you an example. My mum, when it's mango season, she'll buy like a tray or trays of mangoes, and on Sunday everyone's got like bags, and we're like taking all the all the mangoes, and it's perfect. Every mango that my parents picked And I talk about mum a lot because she goes grocery shopping a lot, but dad too, right? So mum and dad, they will pick the perfect mangoes and it's perfectly cut and they'll just touch it and they'll be like, oh, yep, that's the one that we get,
wow.
right? Or they'll smell it and they'll know, like, I don't know which variety it is. Yeah. So there's a lot of care and intention into even just like cutting fruit. And that's their way of maybe communicating and connecting with several of us. So the metaphor of the cut fruit is around that, but also how I guess I've used it in my work is thinking about how people might sort of mix those two worlds around something that our parents showed us as a way of showing love for and care for us, and how we give that back to ourselves through spoken or unspoken kind of ways. And the term I use sometimes is like reparenting. Right, so we can choose to care for ourselves inside through multiple ways. We can choose to learn a different way of talking to ourselves when we are sort of activated in different ways. And I guess a cut fruit metaphor is a really nice kind of, and I'd say culturally affirming metaphor to lean into. So if we think about that back for us when something we do doesn't go well, we mess up with something, we need a bit more self-care in our lives, what might that look like in really small intentional ways, even just the way that you speak to yourself, or even choosing, I don't know, not to go to somewhere when you're feeling deflated, or choosing to go home and rather than lying in bed, you might go and cut yourself some mangoes or something like that.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. And be like, oh, I picked the perfect one for myself. Yeah.
And I'm learning to find the best one.
Yeah.
Right?
I really love this metaphor. I totally get where you're coming from. And on that, I'm going to be like super devil's advocate, because I've definitely heard the flip side as well, right? Like I think for some Asian diaspora, especially like the second gen and people that grew up here in a different world from their parents, they say things like sure, I get the cut fruit thing, like I get it, I appreciate it, but actually I would have loved if my parents just told me that they loved me and they cared for me. Like, what do you say to those people?
Yeah, no, I say I agree.
You're like, cut fruit is good too. Like, I'm trying to understand the nuance. I love how you've cut the fruit for me. I get it.
Yeah.
But could you just like be nice to me?
Yeah, no, could you just say I love you? Can you just hug me, Mum?
Yeah.
Like, And I would say I totally get it, and it's completely valid, and I agree as well, and I feel the same too, right? But also, can it be both, right? Can you feel maybe an acknowledgement, a recognition, an honouring of these ways that maybe your carers, your parents have learned to give love as they know, and also acknowledge the pain that you also feel and the desire that you also want and need around, the need to be seen, the need to be acknowledged and loved and cared for. So can it be both rather than one or the other? Because I think we can get quite fixated in, it's a metaphor, right, in this example, but we can get fixated in right or wrong or black and white, but often it is some middle ground that we might want to lean into to help us become unstuck around the ways that we hold our family stories.
That's so true. Like two things can be true at the same time.
Two things can be true at the same time.
Yeah. And it's like you're not broken because no one told you that they loved you, or
you're not broken, but and you are allowed to feel frustrated and angry and resentful, actually, that you didn't receive that as well, but also moving forward and maybe digging deeper around what would help you move forward.
You can do that in therapy with people like me. And I'm going to ask you about, because your practice is called the Middle Bridge Project. And for me, that's like a really strong metaphor, because I was like, but bridges, like for me, bring up this image of like you help people cross over water, or like it's like a bridge carries heavy things, you know? Yeah. And then I was like, what does a metaphor mean to you?
Yeah, and it's I'm so glad you asked that, because that the thing you said earlier about two opposing truths can be true at once, that was where I guess was inspired by the idea of sort of the middle bridge in the term sort of the middle path. A lot of sort of Confucian kind of values is thinking about how we become more flexible in our thinking, is that the reality in life is that two opposing truths can coexist. We can, I'll give the example of siblings. We can love our sibling, we can hate them as well, right? We can find them hella annoying. Or the other thing is we can still be respectful to our parents, but we can also feel a deep resentment and sadness for them at the same time. And it might feel like two opposing forces, but that's the reality that we actually coexist in life. So, and the bridge there is thinking about how to bridge, I guess, generations, bridge ideas, bridge thoughts. And I love hearing people's interpretation of the middle bridge, because you're right, it is heavy. And no doubt what we do is heavy, but can also be quite connecting, right? So my hope is sort of this middle space where we can have these conversations around bridging generations, bridging cultures and and connection and conversations.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you for that explanation. And I want to segue to, I'm going to look directly, I'm going to break the fourth wall, as they say. Everyone, look at this. This is called Cultural Compass, created by Vi at the Middle Bridge Project. Thank you for gifting me these cards. I'm so excited.
Thank you for having them. You had no choice.
I know, yeah. I have received them. Can we unbox?
Unbox, please. Unbox.
If I can do it unawkwardly. Oh my God, that was surprisingly easy.
Oh.
So my first review is really easy to open the plastic. Double tick there. So actually, let me not be fiddly, but this is beautiful. Okay, so it's a pack of cards. Can I open this bit too?
Yes, feel free to.
So
this is Asami's unboxing Cultural Compass, everyone. Oh, yeah. Go buy it.
Then it's like, we need some background music. Again, the plastic is really easy to open. Wonderful packaging.
The plastic is not
it's not the feature. Okay. Can you talk to us about these cards? They're beautiful.
Yes. So these...
And how do I use them? Yeah.
Yes. So if you do buy them, there's a QR code with like a 20-page kind of instruction manual with...
Oh, like here? Yep.
Yeah, in the card deck.
Here. Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Don't scan it.
Don't scan it. Yeah.
But it's a 56 kind of values card deck. And we think about values, and I call it the cultural compass because we think about the compass as helping us with our direction in life. They're not something we achieve, so they're not goals, right? But clarifying what matters to us helps us move through life and ground us through life easier when life gets tough, but also when we want clarification in life. So I guess this was, inspired in my past decade of practice, in that there are a lot of tools and therapy products out there that are probably a bit more from Western kind of models. And my hope is to create more culturally responsive tools. And this is incorporating a lot of values within, I'd say, South, East and East Asian kind of values, filial piety, collectivism, interdependence, which is often on the sideline and neglected in a lot of tools we use in therapy. So this is my hope to bring the conversation to the table more, not just in the therapy space, but for people who want to come back to that conversations of what grounds me and what matters to me in my cultural context.
Wow.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I know it's in the QR code. But
how do you use it?
Yeah, yes. Could they be like a talking point as well? Or how?
Of course. So our first, exercise that I often share with people, and you don't have to have these cards to clarify your values, right? There's a lot of free resources online, but
you should get it. Yeah,
but you should get it. And because the images are quite lovely, and I'm biased as well because we created it. But the images do have more of, I'd say, an Asian kind of twist in them, around having people with, say, black hair, people of colour, but also symbols like, the lotus or bamboo that might be a bit more representative or familiar for a lot of people. But how you do it is you take your time. You might not do it here, but later on you might find a space and you might do what we call a values sort activity, where you would go through each value and you put it in a pile of most important, somewhat important, and not important. And you go through that, each value, and it gets you thinking about what's important to you right now, sort of in your life. And then you go to the most important pile and you pick top five. And then there's prompting questions in the manual.
Wow, that is so cool. Okay, I'm just going to read a few.
Yeah, please do.
Oh, beautiful. Okay, so I picked the connection one.
Mm-hmm.
And it says, engaging authentically with others and the world, fostering meaningful relationships and shared experiences while maintaining openness, presence, and understanding. But I think what is really beautiful about this, obviously the words are beautiful, but the picture is people making dumplings together.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's, and you're so right. Like you never would see this in other kind of therapy tools or therapy resources about connection. You would see like maybe like hugging,
yeah,
right? Or like a lot of physical contact.
That's
right. But you're so right. Like this is a connection point. Even like in Japanese, it's like gyoza. But making the gyoza on our big dining table, which we haven't done in this house that I've lived in since COVID. So lacking connection everywhere.
and that's exactly it, right? It's prompted you to think about connection.
That's true.
It's prompted
the
you to
last
think
time
about,
we did it, actually, it was when Yo came over to our house, and then I made him make the dumplings and then cook them.
You need a dumpling party now because of
right.
Yeah. So it gets you thinking, and I really like how you thought about sort of your own experiences and how like the meaning that you make of this image, right? Because someone else might look at it and be like, no, I don't really eat dumplings, right?
Yeah.
Or they might have a different meaning that they make with dumplings or the images or the word connection as well. But it prompts. So I guess it's a space for conversation and dialogue and further thinking.
Wow, that's beautiful. Thank you for making this product and this thing that now exists in the world, and a culturally responsive tool that people can use as well. So it should be used in psychology practices, not just like for individuals, you know, but people should be buying this, everyone. Anyway.
It's for therapists as well. I have lots of therapists. So it's for therapists and I guess everyday people too.
Wow.
But thank you for giving me the platform to talk about it.
And thank you for
and
this.
Share it.
This is beautiful. And thank you for all the work that you do and for sharing your story so openly. I think hearing firsthand that experience of you being a parent, the history of your parents' journey here and comparing your experiences, and also just knowing that you are this so-called Asian parent, whatever that means, and how you conceptualize and how you kind of navigate the world to support your daughter is really beautiful. So thank you, and for all the work that you do as well as a psychologist. It was lovely to chat. So I just want to tell everyone that Vi is on Instagram at Middle Bridge Project.
Yes.
Yeah, Middle Bridge Project. We'll put it all in the show notes. But everyone listening, thank you so much for your time. But you can find us on Instagram and LinkedIn at Just Shapes and Sounds. You'll see that Vi is connected to us, don't worry, on our socials as well. Please subscribe and leave us a review on your favourite podcast app because it really helps other people find us. It's just how the world works these days, right? But please download this episode for offline listening. And most importantly, if you can share this episode with your friends, maybe some parents, maybe some new parents. Oh my God, they really need to hear this, right? Because word of mouth really helps us to destigmatize mental health within Asian communities. So thank you, Vi. Thanks for joining us here today.
Asami, and the Shapes and Sounds team. It's been really fun and I feel very relaxed.
Do you? Yeah, me too. Your voice is very peaceful.
Oh, thank you. Oh, thanks, Asami. It's so fun.
The Asian Mental Health Podcast is a production from Shapes and Sounds, and it's made on the lands of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people of the Kulin Nation. This show is hosted by Asami Koike, Marcus Lai and Oscar Abe, and produced by Yo Chung. We're proudly supported by the Victorian Department of Health's Diverse Communities program. All thoughts and ideas you hear are independently ours and our guests.